Hello, Mr. Swinger One here. I want to talk a little bit more about these 360 heads, I'll call them. So the J head. We're going to check the casting numbers. I have a book here. We'll look at that. But the casting number is 3418915. I don't know if you can see it right there. 3418915. These are the cleaned up heads that are on my engine that I'm saying have 188. Well, actually, I know for a fact they do. These are an early 70s 360 head, but they're also a late run 340 head. So let's look at the book here. So we know they're 915 heads. Let me get a pen so I can point. So looking at the book, 340 1972 had 915 heads. So 188 intake, 160 exhaust, with a 65cc combustion chamber with a non-adjustable valve train. So that's your shaft mount rockers, the lifters pump up, tighten everything up. 360, 71 and 72 had 915. Same situation, 188, 160. 65cc combustion chamber. Now, I have an identical casting set of heads over there with 202s in it. The 7340 TA had that 915 casting with 202s, 65cc chambers. I do not believe those are TA heads. I do believe they were possibly 72 340 or 71 72 360 with 202s installed. We will take a look. Some people have said that some of the J heads had 202s, and this is like old heads that were around back in the day and actually tore these cars apart when they were a few years old. But let's turn this up and we'll look at the valves. Oh, should wear gloves when you're handling castings. Your hands will get boogered up quick. All right. Any type of mechanics glove like that. I just didn't have any on. And my fingers got pinched a little bit. All right. So those are your 188, 160s. Over here, it's dirty, but these are 202, 160. I'm trying to see if I have any way I can clean this up. So I picked these heads up. I started this 340 build. I was going to get those J heads redone. And I came across this other set of J heads with 202s. And I picked them up. They were less than 300 bucks. So I don't know the condition yet. Like, say they were 285, whatever they were. If I can't rebuild them, then it's 285 out the door, but that's the gamble. These are the 202s, and if you can see, very tight space in between. It almost looks like the valves are touching. The 188s has more of a visible area of metal between the valve seats. So that's the scoop. Like, if you look naked eye, you look at a set of heads, looks like the valves are touching each other. They're 202s. I don't know if you can see the difference there between the 188. I can see it right there. You can see it with the naked eye, the bigger intake valve. So while we're talking about these 65cc combustion chambers, right? So this is the problem putting these heads on an LA 318. The LA 318, at top dead center, the pistons were already, they were not zero deck height. They were like negative deck height, which means at top dead center, the flat top piston's still down in the bore. So the 318, let's look at the compression cc's of 318 heads. 67, it was 57 cc's. 68 to 74 went up to 60. 75 to 83, they were up to 63. 77 to 86, they were at 63. 77 to 84, they had a 63 cc chamber. 318, 85, 86, they had a fast burn, 62.6 cc's. The 318 police, 83 to 86. 188, 160, 75 cc's. That was actually a modified J head. But point is, let's say you're taking a 68 to 74 318 with a 60 cc chamber. You throw a set of 340 heads on. The J heads are bigger, 65. The 68 to 71 340 had a 63 cc chamber. I believe those were the X heads. So say you throw these later 360 heads on, they're 65 cc's. And you're going to throw it on 68 to 74 318 with a 60 cc head. You're adding 5 more cc's to your compression ratio, if that makes sense. You're making everything bigger. You already have negative deck pistons, so you're effectively lowering your compression ratio. That was the thing. You throw these heads on a 318, it opens them up for flow, but you lose compression ratio. With the early 318 was already like 8.5 to 1. So that's the thing with that. Another thing with these heads, we're going to look at the, let me see if I can lower this down without smashing my fingers. If you look in there, those are dampers. They're not, these could be in effect be called double springs, but there's a damper inside this larger coil. Your LA 318s will have a smaller diameter single coil. And keep in mind that like the 318 two barrel had like a 400 thousandths lift cam. It might have been less than that. It might have been high 370, 380 thousandths lift. So they weren't high lift, they weren't high rev. So you put a hot cam with standard LA 340 heads and you try and rev it, you might run into valve float situations because of the springs. That's another thing. The stock LA 318 heads, in my opinion, are one of the biggest problems trying to get performance out of a 318. It'll run good, it'll sound good, and it'll do a burnout, but you're running it down the track. Anybody racing a 318 successfully has good heads on it. They're not running stock 318 heads. What else? Oh, yeah. So because of that bigger spring, this part of your 318 LA rocker may be smaller, machined smaller for the smaller spring. If you try and use 318 rockers on this bigger spring setup, this part of the rocker might jam up here and your tips might not even come down and touch the valve. I'm trying to think if I have anything else on that. Yeah, like I said, this is all LA stuff. So people that talk Magnums and call them 318s, I'm not talking about the Magnum. I'm talking about LA, the late 60s, early 70s stuff. Right there's the casting number on that. 3418915. So it's exact same casting as this. It's just that this one has 202s in it, and why I don't know. I will find out when I disassemble and clean them up. It's possible these were modded after the fact, or maybe they snuck through the factory that way. But the book is telling me both these castings should be 188s, unless it's a 340 TA, which I'm pretty sure those aren't TA heads. If they are, I got really lucky and got them real cheap. And what are the odds of that being true? Anyway, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. All right. I wanted to just clarify, let you guys know I'm looking this up here. I made a statement about the 318 having like a 4,000th inch lift on the cam. So what I'm looking at, we're just going to look at a 68 318. 373 on the intake, 399 on the exhaust. I just want to make sure you guys know I'm not making stuff up off the top of my head. Now, the 68 340, there's a footnote 3 and 4. See there, footnote 3 and 4. So we'll go down here. 3. Manual trans 444, auto trans 429. So footnote 3 was on the intake valve. So that's saying a 68 340 manual trans had a 444 lift. Over on the exhaust valve, it was footnote 4. So footnote 4, manual trans had a 453 lift. Auto trans 444. Now, this is a cam card from a Summit. What is this one? Let's look at this. This is a Summit cam. It is the, why do I not remember the part number of Summit? But anyway, it's a 441 intake and exhaust. 276 duration on intake, 286 on exhaust. I will find that Summit cam number and put it in the video. It's a standard Summit cam, affordable. They used to be like $150, lifters included. I ran this in a 318. It worked, but I did have the stock heads with the stock valve springs, and it only did so much. It wasn't, you know, a total, it was fun because I had a 391 rear, but other than that, it ran like a 318 with a 600 Holly on it and headers. It was the standard recipe, what people do, but I just wanted to show you that in the book. 318s are, you know, less than 400 thousandths lift. Let's go to 71. It's still 373, 399. 340 by down was 429, 444. Yeah, so that's out of the book, folks. That's the thing about these 318s and trying to get them to run like a 340. There's a lot more to it than just going for it. You know what I mean? All right. Hopefully this information helps.